You wake up in the morning, and for a fleeting moment before your eyes even fully open, you feel that familiar weight settle in your chest. It's not quite sadness, not physical pain, but something deeper and more unsettling. The sensation that even if everything in your life is functioning, even if you have a job, relationships, maybe even achievements others envy, there's an invisible hole inside you that nothing seems to fill. You get up, go through the motions, smile when you have to, but behind this functional facade is a silent question gnawing at you. What for? What's it all for? You've tried burying yourself in work until you're exhausted. You've chased fleeting pleasures and distractions. You've consumed self-help content promising happiness. You've even considered that maybe the problem is chemical, something in your brain that needs adjusting with medication, but none of it touches the root of what you feel. In social conversations, when someone asks how you're doing, you automatically reply that you're fine because how do you explain this existential void to people who seem perfectly content living on autopilot? How do you say you feel like an actor playing your own life, watching from the outside as you perform a role you never consciously chose? At night, when you're finally alone with your thoughts, the anguish intensifies. You realize days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and it all feels like a repetition without a greater purpose. You're not depressed in the classic sense. You don't want to give up on life, but you also don't feel that vitality, that deep connection to what you're living. It's as if you're waiting for something, but you don't quite know what, as if there's a dimension of existence that others seem to access but remains closed off to you. And then you observe, with a mix of envy and bewilderment, people who have endured devastating losses, unimaginable suffering, and somehow emerged from those experiences not just surviving but transformed, carrying a depth and sense of purpose that you, with your objectively more comfortable life, can't find. How is that possible? Why did their suffering generate meaning while your emptiness only breeds more emptiness? The answer to this tormenting question was discovered by a man who faced literal hell on earth and emerged with a revolutionary understanding of human nature. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and survivor of 4 Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz, not only survived the unimaginable, but used that extreme experience as a laboratory to understand something fundamental about why some humans find purpose even in the most atrocious pain, while others get lost in the void, even amidst comfort. What he discovered aren't motivational platitudes or superficial positive thinking techniques. They are truths tested in the most brutal conditions humanity has ever created. Principles that worked where nothing else could, insights that can finally illuminate this existential black hole you carry within you. And Frankl's most unsettling discovery is this: the problem isn't the absence of happiness in your life. It's not a lack of pleasure or comfort. The problem is that you've been chasing the wrong thing all along. When Frankl arrived at the concentration camps in 1944, everything was ripped away from him within hours. Not just his material possessions, not just his freedom, but his identity as a respected doctor, his nearly complete manuscript representing years of intellectual work, his basic human dignity. He was reduced to a number tattooed on his arm, stripped, shaved, dressed in rags, thrown into overcrowded barracks where death was so common that the living woke up next to corpses every morning. There, in that universe of absolute horror where human beings were treated as less than animals, where hunger was constant, where the cold seeped into your bones, where at any moment you could be selected for the gas chamber, Frankl began to observe something that contradicted all the dominant psychological theories of the time. He noticed that survival wasn't determined by physical strength. It wasn't a matter of who had more initial health or stamina. Robust men who seemed to have every biological advantage often crumbled quickly, giving up on life, while physically weaker individuals continued to fight, keeping an inner spark alive even when everything around them was darkness. The difference wasn't in their bodies. It was in something Frankl called a will to meaning. Those who survived, who resisted the temptation to throw themselves onto the electrified fences or simply give up on waking one morning, were the ones who remained connected to a why that transcended the immediate horror. One man kept living because he had a child waiting for him somewhere. He didn't know if his child was alive, but the possibility, the potential responsibility of reuniting, gave meaning to every day of suffering. Another prisoner was a scientist with incomplete research, a unique contribution only he could make to human knowledge, and that kept him fighting. Frankl himself clung to the idea that one day he could rewrite his lost manuscript, could share with the world what he was learning about human nature in that grotesque laboratory of suffering. And here's the crucial revelation that completely shatters how modern psychology has taught us to think about human motivation. These people weren't seeking happiness. They weren't trying to avoid pain or maximize pleasure. They were responding to a calling, fulfilling a responsibility they felt towards something larger than themselves. Freud had taught that humans are fundamentally driven by the pursuit of pleasure, by tension reduction, by the satisfaction of impulses. But here, in a place where there was no pleasure whatsoever, where every moment was tension and suffering, some human beings not only survived, but maintained their humanity intact. And they did so not despite the absence of pleasure, but because of the presence of meaning. This discovery would become the bedrock of logotherapy, the third Viennese school of psychotherapy that Frankl would develop after the war. If Freud's psychoanalysis viewed human beings as driven by the will to pleasure, and Adler's individual psychology emphasized the will to power, Frankl proposed that the primary and most profound human motivation is the will to meaning. And this is where everything starts to make sense in relation to your own existential void. You live in a society that has achieved levels of material comfort and security your ancestors couldn't have imagined. You likely have access to food whenever you're hungry, a roof over your head, and technologies that make life easier and more comfortable than at any other point in human history. You've been taught, implicitly and explicitly, that happiness comes from satisfying desires, accumulating pleasurable experiences, and eliminating discomfort. All the advertising around you, the entire consumer culture, the entertainment industry, they all operate under this Freudian premise. Maximize pleasure, minimize pain, and you'll be happy. But here's the cruel paradox you're living firsthand. The more you chase happiness directly, the more you try to fill your life with pleasures and comforts, the emptier you feel. And it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's not because you need more pleasure or better pleasures. It's because you're chasing the wrong thing from the start. Frankl observed that in affluent societies, where basic needs are largely met, there's a paradoxical increase in what he called neugenic neuroses, suffering that doesn't arise from psychological conflicts or chemical imbalances, but from a void of meaning. You don't have a traditional psychiatric problem, you have an existential one. You're living in an era of material abundance and spiritual poverty, not necessarily in a religious sense, but in terms of connection to purpose, meaning, and responsibility that transcends the self. And now I need to pause and really talk to you, because I know many of you watching this video are carrying exactly this weight in silence. You wake up, you function, you play your roles, but there's this persistent feeling that something fundamental is missing, that you're living on the surface of life, while others seem to have access to depths you don't. So I want to ask you, have you ever felt like you're functioning perfectly on the outside, but completely empty on the inside? Fulfilling all your obligations, but without feeling like it truly matters? If this is your experience, type here in the comments simply, "I feel this void of purpose." You don't have to elaborate if you don't want to, just that phrase. And understand something important. By putting this into words here, you're not just validating your own experience. You're creating a mirror for dozens, maybe hundreds of other people who feel exactly this way but think they're alone in this struggle. Often, the simple act of seeing that others share this thirst for meaning breaks the isolation that intensifies suffering. Your courage in naming this can be the trigger that allows someone else to finally recognize and begin to address their own existential void. Let's build a community of honesty here about these deep issues that our superficial society prefers to ignore. Now, returning to Frankl's fundamental understanding. He wasn't just making abstract philosophical observations, he was describing a concrete psychological reality he saw every day in his clinical practice. People came to him with symptoms of anxiety, depression, phobias, compulsions, and when he investigated deeply, he often found that behind these symptoms lay an unrecognized void of meaning. He saw successful executives who had everything society tells us we should want: wealth, status, recognition, but who felt like imposters living lives they hadn't consciously chosen. He saw young people who had their whole futures ahead of them, but couldn't find a compelling reason to move forward. He saw people who filled their days with frenetic activities, but who, in moments of quiet, were invaded by a sense of futility. And the treatment Frankl developed wasn't about trying to make these people feel better through relaxation techniques or cognitive restructuring, though those things could have their place. The central treatment was helping them discover or rediscover the unique meaning their lives were called to fulfill. And here, Frankl made another crucial distinction. Meaning isn't something you invent or arbitrarily create. It's something you discover. Your life, with its specific circumstances, your unique capabilities, your particular limitations, is asking you a question. The question isn't whether life has meaning on some abstract universal level. The question is, what is the meaning that your specific situation is demanding that you realize? And this question changes, evolves, transforms throughout life. The meaning you're called to fulfill at 20 might be completely different from the meaning at 40 or 60. Meaning can be in creating something, in contributing through work, in developing a talent. Meaning can be in loving someone deeply, in being present for another human being in a way only you can. And meaning can be, and here's where Frankl goes deeper than any other psychological approach, in the attitude you choose to adopt in the face of unavoidable suffering. Let's dive into these three pathways to meaning that Frankl identified, because really grasping them could be the key that finally unlocks that door that's been jammed shut for you. The first pathway is through creation or accomplishment. This can be through work, but not in the hollow sense of just clocking in, earning a paycheck, or checking off tasks. It's work as a calling, as a unique contribution you can make to the world. Frankl encountered a cobbler in the concentration camps who found meaning in crafting the best possible shoes, even under those horrific conditions, because he saw his craft as something that transcended his circumstances. In contemporary life, this can be any activity through which you put something of value into the world that wouldn't exist without you. It could be creating art. It could be building a business. It could be teaching. It could be researching. It could be organizing communities. It could be developing new technologies. The yardstick isn't external grandeur. It's the authenticity of the connection between who you are and what you're doing. Many people feel empty because they're doing work that anyone could do, work that doesn't require or express anything particular about them. They're interchangeable cogs in impersonal machines, and that erodes meaning. The second pathway to meaning is through experience or encounter. This often manifests through love, but Frankl had a very specific and profound understanding of what genuine love entails. It's not the neurotic need to be loved. It's not a fusion that erases individuality. It's not a dependency that tries to fill internal voids through another. It's the capacity to see and affirm the essential uniqueness of another human being, to be present for who that person truly is in their totality. Frankl recounts that in the darkest moments in the concentration camp, he would often conjure the image of his wife. He didn't know if she was still alive, but contemplating her essence, her unique being, gave him the strength to go on. True love, in this sense, is a form of self-transcendence. You step outside yourself and orient yourself toward another being, and paradoxically, it's in this stepping out of yourself that you find a deeper fulfillment than any self-absorption could ever provide. This also extends to experiences of beauty, of nature, of art, of truth. These are moments where you are pulled out of your self-concern and connected with something you recognize as valuable in itself, not for its utility to you, but it's the third pathway to meaning that represents Frankl's most radical and distinctive contribution, and it's also the hardest for our contemporary mindset, obsessed with avoiding discomfort, to accept. Frankl asserted that we can find meaning even, and sometimes especially, through the attitude we choose to adopt in the face of inevitable suffering. Not suffering that we can or should avoid, not unnecessary or masochistic suffering, but suffering that is inherent to the human condition or our particular situation. The loss of loved ones, aging and death, certain illnesses or limitations, failures and disappointments that are part of any human life. In the face of this kind of suffering, we have an ultimate freedom that no one can take away. the freedom to choose our attitude. And here, Frankl isn't talking about superficial stoicism or simply passively accepting what happens. He's talking about transforming personal tragedy into a human triumph through the testimony of how you bear it. He observed in the camps that some prisoners, even when they knew they likely wouldn't survive, chose to share their last crust of bread with another inmate, chose to offer words of comfort, chose to maintain their moral integrity even when it offered no survival advantage. These individuals were exercising the most fundamental freedom that exists, the freedom to take a stand in the face of fate, to not be merely determined by circumstances, but to take a position relative to them. And Frankl argued that when you transform your suffering into something that testifies to values, to courage, to love, to human dignity, you don't just find meaning in that suffering, you qualitatively transform the experience of it. The suffering doesn't disappear, but it ceases to be merely destructive and becomes formative as well. You become a different, deeper person through how you endure what you cannot change. Now let's see how this directly connects with the emptiness you're feeling, because the answer isn't abstract. It's absolutely concrete and personal. You were likely raised in a culture that essentially treats human beings as consumers, as maximizers of personal utility. You absorbed the message that the good life is a life of continuous satisfaction of preferences, of accumulating pleasant experiences, of systematically avoiding discomfort. And under that logic, when you feel empty, the logical response seems to be, consume more, have more experiences, seek more pleasures. But this only intensifies the emptiness because you're treating your own life as a project of self-gratification. And human beings are not biologically programmed to find fulfillment through unlimited self-gratification. We are programmed biologically and existentially to transcend ourselves, to orient ourselves toward meanings and values that we recognize as greater than our immediate impulses. When you live only for yourself, when everything you do is filtered through the question, what's in it for me? You're operating in a dimension of existence that Frankl called reductively human. You're living as if you were just an organism seeking homeostasis, comfortable equilibrium, and ignoring the specifically human dimension that is noetic, spiritual, meaning-oriented, and that dimension cannot be ignored with impunity. When you neglect it, it rebels in the form of existential emptiness, diffuse anxiety, depression without apparent cause. Your psyche is sending you a signal. You are not living in your full human potential. You are existentially underachieving. Frankl developed specific therapeutic techniques based on this understanding. One is paradoxical intention, where instead of fighting anxiety or phobic symptoms, you intentionally exaggerate them. By doing so, you distance yourself from them, exercising the human capacity for self-distancing, the ability not to be wholly identified with your emotional states. If you're afraid of trembling in public, the instruction is to try and tremble as much as possible, and often by doing so, the tremor disappears because you've broken the fear of fear cycle. But deeper than paradoxical intention is the technique of de-reflection, where you're encouraged to stop obsessively observing yourself, stop constantly monitoring your emotional state, and instead orient yourself outward toward tasks, values, people. The problem with much modern anxiety and depression is hyper-reflection, excessive self-observation that creates a vicious cycle. The more you ask yourself, am I happy right now? Am I feeling good? Am I finally fulfilled? The further you move away from the possibility of actually being absorbed in something meaningful. Happiness and fulfillment can't be pursued directly. They are byproducts of living a meaning-oriented life. When you're genuinely absorbed in work that matters to you, when you're truly present for someone you love, when you're facing a tough challenge with integrity, you're not thinking, I'm happy now. You simply are alive, engaged, real, and in retrospect, you realize those were your most fulfilling moments, not moments of passive pleasure or self-indulgence. Here's another crucial dimension of Frankl's thought that profoundly counters our contemporary therapeutic culture. He didn't see meaning as something subjective that you simply choose or arbitrarily invent. He believed there are objective meanings, real demands that situations place on you, and that the task is to develop the moral and existential sensitivity to perceive these demands. Your specific life with its unique circumstances, is asking specific questions of you. The child only you can raise in a certain way, the work only you can do with your particular combination of talents and experiences, the suffering only you are positioned to transform into a testimony. And there's an embedded responsibility. You are responsible for responding to these demands, for fulfilling the meanings only you can fulfill. No one else can live your life for you. No one else can fulfill the unique meanings waiting for you. And when you avoid this responsibility, when you live in the mode of least resistance following the path everyone else takes, doing what's expected without questioning if it's what your particular life is calling you to do, you accumulate what Frankl called existential guilt. Not guilt in the sense of having violated an external moral code, but guilt in the sense of being indebted to your own possibilities, of betraying your most authentic potential. And this existential guilt often manifests as depression, anxiety, a sense of fraud, of living someone else's life. If these ideas are resonating deeply with you, if you feel you've finally found a language to articulate what's been bothering you, then I invite you to subscribe to this channel. I'm not here to sell you easy happiness or magic formulas. I'm here to explore with you week after week the deeper ideas that philosophy and humanistic psychology have to offer on how to live a life of genuine meaning in a world that constantly pushes you towards superficiality. This is a space for those courageous enough to ask the hard questions, to challenge the ready-made answers culture offers, to seek depth in an era of constant distraction. You are not alone on this journey. There's a growing community here of people who also feel this hunger for meaning, who also refuse to accept lives lived on autopilot. Click subscribe now and join us in this pursuit of an examined life, a responsible life, a life oriented toward what truly matters. But let me also address the limitations and criticisms of Frankl's thought, because intellectual rigor demands it. Some critics argue that Frankl's emphasis on discovering meaning can inadvertently blame people who are suffering, as if the problem was simply a matter of not having found the right meaning. This criticism has some merit if we interpret Frankl superficially. It's important to understand that Frankl never denied the reality of suffering caused by biological, social, or economic factors. He wasn't saying all depression is just a lack of meaning, or that all anxieties can be cured simply by finding purpose. He was identifying a specific dimension of human suffering, nogenic suffering, which arises specifically from a void of meaning, and proposing that this dimension had been neglected by traditional psychology and psychiatry. For suffering of biological origin, biological treatments may be necessary. For suffering caused by social oppression or injustice, social changes are needed. But there is also a type of suffering that arises when a human being, even with all basic needs met, doesn't find or doesn't respond to the call for meaning inherent in human existence. And for this type of suffering, logotherapy offers unique insights. Another criticism is that Frankl's emphasis on finding meaning even in suffering can be used ideologically to justify sufferings that ought to be eliminated. If we can find meaning in any suffering, why fight against injustices? Why improve living conditions? But this is a distortion of Frankl's thought. He clearly distinguished between avoidable suffering, which should be eliminated or mitigated whenever possible, and unavoidable suffering, which is part of the human condition. You should fight injustice. You should seek cures for treatable diseases. You should work to improve living conditions. But when you face suffering that cannot be eliminated, loss of loved ones, your own mortality, certain inherent limitations, then you have the option to give meaning to that suffering through how you endure it. So how do you actually start applying this to your own life, moving from that existential emptiness you feel toward a life of meaning? Frankl didn't offer ready-made formulas because, by definition, the meaning your life is asking of you is unique. It can't be prescribed by anyone else. But he did offer directions, ways to cultivate a sensitivity to meaning. First, practice what he called self-transcendence, the ability to step outside your obsessive self-concern and orient yourself towards something or someone outside yourself. This can start with something simple. When you're caught up in ruminating about your own problems and emptiness, deliberately shift your attention to a concrete task that needs doing, or to someone who needs your presence and attention. Notice how the quality of your experience changes when you stop watching yourself and become absorbed in something beyond yourself. Second, cultivate responsibility. Start asking the question not, "What do I want from life?" but, "What is life asking of me right now?" Look at your specific circumstances, your particular relationships, your unique capabilities, and ask, is there something waiting to be done that only I, in this particular way, can do? It might be something huge. It might be something seemingly small. The size doesn't matter. What matters is the authenticity of the connection between who you are and what you're doing. Third, develop the capacity for self-distancing, not being completely identified with your fleeting emotional states. When you feel anxiety, instead of thinking, "I am anxious," practice noticing, "I am experiencing anxiety right now, but I am not reducible to that anxiety." There's a dimension within you that can observe the anxiety without being completely consumed by it. This distance creates space for choice. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, stop chasing happiness directly. Frankl had a memorable line, "Happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue, and it only ensues as the unintended side effect of personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as a byproduct of surrender to a person other than yourself." The more you aim for happiness, the more you miss it. The more you make it your target, the more you'll miss the mark. This isn't pessimism, it's profound psychological realism. Think about the moments in your life when you've been genuinely fulfilled, not just entertained or distracted, but deeply satisfied. They probably weren't moments when you were focused on your own happiness. They were moments when you were absorbed in creating something, connecting with someone, overcoming a challenge, contributing to something larger. Happiness arose as an unlooked-for byproduct of being engaged with meaning. Fifth, accept that the existential emptiness you feel isn't a defect to be fixed, but a signal to be heeded. It's your noetic dimension, your specifically human capacity for meaning, signaling that you're living below your existential potential. Instead of trying to fill that void with distractions, substances, or consumption, listen to what it's trying to tell you. It's telling you that you're capable of more depth, more authenticity, more responsibility than you're currently living. Sixth, seriously consider the possibility that your life, even if you don't believe in anything supernatural, has an objective meaning waiting to be discovered. You're not here by accident. You're the product of an unimaginable chain of cosmic and evolutionary events that led to this specific moment where you exist with these particular capabilities. And there are unique tasks, meanings, responsibilities that correspond to your particular existence. Your life is posing specific questions to you. The question is whether you'll answer them or ignore them. Let me also address a question that might be bubbling up in your mind. What if I can't discover my meaning? What if I really don't have a unique purpose? Frankl would say that question is already framed incorrectly. You don't have one single, eternal, unchanging meaning. You have meanings that shift and evolve moment by moment, situation by situation. At this point in your life, with these specific circumstances, there are specific meanings waiting for you. 5 years from now, there will be others. Meaning isn't a thing you discover once and you're done. It's an orientation you continually cultivate, a sensitivity you develop, a question you keep asking. And sometimes meaning is obvious, crystal clear. Other times it's ambiguous, confusing, but the general direction is always the same. Move from exclusive self-concern toward responsibility for something or someone beyond yourself. Move from the question, "What can I gain?" to the question, "What can I give?" Move from avoiding discomfort to accepting that genuine growth often involves discomfort. Move from the passivity of waiting for life to give you something to the activity of responding to what life is asking of you. And if you're thinking, "But I have practical responsibilities, bills to pay, mundane obligations. How can I live a life oriented toward deep meaning?" You're creating a false dichotomy. Frankl wasn't saying to abandon practical responsibilities in pursuit of some grand mission. He was saying that even the most mundane tasks can be performed with an attitude that connects them to a larger meaning, or they can be performed mechanically as a mere means to another end. The difference isn't always in the task, it's in your relationship to the task, in the meaning you perceive in it. There's a story Viktor Frankl used to tell about 3 construction workers chipping away at stone. When asked what they were doing, the first one grumbled, "I'm just breaking rocks." The second, a bit more upbeat, said, "I'm earning my paycheck." But the third, with a glint in his eye, declared, "I'm building a cathedral." Same task, three vastly different levels of meaning. You can wash dishes as an annoying chore you despise, or you can wash dishes as an act of care for your family, creating an ordered environment that allows for other meaningful activities. The task doesn't change, but your experience of it is completely transformed based on the meaning you perceive in it. And here's another crucial dimension. Frankl emphasized that it's never too late to find meaning. Even in their final moments, a person has the possibility of imbuing their entire life with meaning through the attitude they adopt toward death. He counseled elderly individuals who felt they'd wasted their lives, helping them see that as long as they are alive, they have the responsibility and the opportunity to realize meaning, even if it's through the testimony of how they face their limitations and their mortality. And he also helped people realize that past suffering, previous failures, aren't just negatives. They are part of who you've become. They've forged capacities for understanding and empathy you wouldn't otherwise possess. You can't change your past, but you can change the meaning your past holds by incorporating it into a future project of meaning. Now we arrive at a sobering truth. Frankl wasn't afraid to articulate, a meaning-oriented life often involves suffering, hardship, sacrifice. Not because you're seeking suffering, but because any significant endeavor involves challenges. Any deep love involves vulnerability and the possibility of loss. Any genuine responsibility involves weight. A meaning-driven life isn't easier than a pleasure-seeking life. It's often harder, but it is incomparably richer, deeper, more real. And here's the final paradox. The pleasure-oriented life, which seems easier, often results in emptiness and despair. The meaning-oriented life, which seems harder, results in profound fulfillment even amidst difficulties. You've experienced this. The moments in your life you cherish most, that most shaped who you are, were likely not the easiest or most pleasurable moments. They were moments where you faced something difficult with integrity, where you gave yourself to someone or something fully, where you overcame limitations that seemed insurmountable. Those moments had meaning, and it's the meaning that endures, not the fleeting pleasure. So we return to the question that opened our conversation. Why do some find purpose in pain while you don't? Now you have the answer. It's not because those people are special or have some gift you lack. It's because they have, consciously or unconsciously, tapped into that noetic dimension of human existence, that capacity to position themselves in relation to their circumstances rather than simply being determined by them. They've asked not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What is this situation asking of me? How can I respond in a way that honors my deepest values?" And you possess that same capacity. You have the ultimate freedom that Frankl discovered in Auschwitz, the freedom to choose your attitude in any given circumstance. You have the capacity for self-transcendence, for moving beyond yourself and orienting yourself towards something greater. You have the potential sensitivity to perceive meanings that are waiting for you. What you may not have done yet is consistently activate these capacities. Cultivate this meaning orientation as your fundamental stance toward life. You've been living in the psychophysical dimension, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, and wondering why that's not enough. Now you know it's not enough because you are more than an organism seeking homeostasis. You are a being capable of and in need of meaning. And the emptiness you feel isn't a defect, it's a call. It's your life asking, will you finally live me in all my possible depth, or will you continue on the surface?